This video is now in session. A couple of days ago, there was a very well documented Texas snowstorm that brought record amounts of snow to many Texan towns. And for a lot of Texan towns and cities, they have set new records for low temperature and as well as just mentioned the amount of snow. Now, this is obviously a very big event, and a byproduct of this was that a lot of Texans lost power, so that means they lost gas, they lost heat, and they lost water. So as a result, a lot of politicians who are in the incumbency are blaming each other and blaming other people for what had happened. So before I talk more about what exactly happened, here are some people to just know. First, you have the Democrats, which you obviously know. And then you have Beto O'Rourke, who was the 2018 Texas Senate candidate against Ted Cruz's Mulligan, who won by around 3%. And then you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's the representative from New York's 14th congressional district. You have Dan Crenshaw, who's the representative from Texas's 2nd district. Greg Abbott, who is currently the governor of Texas, and as mentioned before, Ted Cruz, who is the senator from Texas. You have the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, which manages all the electricity and the power in this region that is depicted in the picture. You have wind turbines, and finally you have Trump's son. So, so pretty much a lot of the power under Urquhart's jurisdiction went out. Pretty much all of it. So, as a result, who's to blame for all of this mess? That's the question a lot of politicians have been asking, and there are several. But for you guys who want to know who to blame, there's probably a lot of, there's a lot of ambiguity about this issue. Is Urquhart to blame? Is Greg Abbott to blame? Is Texas's history to blame? Is the Green New Deal to blame? Is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to blame? Who's to blame? Well, there are, as mentioned in the bullet points here, these are all the people that you should be blaming. Which are the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, Greg Abbott, Texas's history, everything's bigger in Texas, and Texas politics. Now, if you're wondering why Urquhart or Texas has its own power grid in comparison to all the other states, which literally all the other states that are normal and have are part of a collective power grid, then let me quickly explain. So, in the United States, you have two power grids that essentially are the same, but manage not interconnectedly, but by two sets of multinational corporations. So you have the Eastern interconnection and the Western interconnection. These all connect the United States, with the exception of Texas. Texas has to be special, and as they say, everything's bigger in Texas. So as a result, they have to have their own. They have to have their own power grid operator, and that's where Urquhart comes in. Urquhart manages this power grid and is essentially funded by the state government in order to make sure that updates can be made and to make sure that any adjustments can proceed. So for several years, Urquhart has been underfunded, and not that they're underfunded. It's just in part they haven't used the money to upgrade the power grid, because in Texas you don't normally experience snow or really, really cold temperatures. In fact, you probably think of the opposite when you think of Texas. So Urquhart didn't really upgrade its systems, with the exception of El Paso. El Paso, I believe, used to be in Urquhart, but then after a snowstorm, which pretty much lost the city's entire power, they then started to make upgrades and are now part of the Western interconnection. And just for context, in this snowstorm that happened in Texas, El Paso did not have any power outages because it was part of the Western interconnection. Only Urquhart had power outages. So why does Texas need its own power grid? It's essentially money and competitiveness. Texas has pride itself on energy and creating a competitive energy market. So a lot of other states run differently in their power grid compared to Texas. A lot of states' power grids run like an insurance system. You pay energy company to make sure that no power outages happen at this kind of circumstance, and if it does, then they have to pay for it. They have to pay the state, but the state pays the energy companies to make sure that that doesn't happen. Meanwhile, in Texas, you have more of a market kind of system where Texas tries to get the cheapest energy, I guess, energy deal that they can, that they have. So if there is a energy company that has a cheaper deal than the current energy company, then ERCOT and Texas would change energy providers so that they can have a lower cost. And that is essentially why they have ERCOT. It's because they run under a market system rather than an insurance system. So yeah, when ERCOT fails, or not ERCOT fails, but when these power grids fail in Texas, who's to blame? Well, for politicians, they have blamed a ton of people, and this is where like the background guide comes to use. So just quickly remember this, and let's go to this. Alright, as you can see, there's a lot of arrows. So let me explain this, because I tried to fit all of this political blame game within one slide, but there are a lot of other people involved in this political blame game. People like Vic Perry. But if I tried to include all of those people, then it would not fit in this slide. So let's start from the left because it's the cleanest and easiest to handle. So Democrats are blaming Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott for all of this issue. And then meanwhile, you have Donald Trump Jr., who's blaming it on Democrats, which doesn't make sense because Democrats aren't even the majority in the Texas state House, state Senate, or the gubernatorialship. That said, Donald Trump Jr. thinks that Texas's governor is a Democrat, and he's saying that the Democratic governor of Texas is inept, but there's no Democratic governor. It's only a Republican governor named Greg Abbott. So essentially, he's just blaming Greg Abbott. And then who are these three people blaming? Who's Ted Cruz, Dan Crenshaw, and Greg Abbott blaming? Let's start with Ted Cruz. Actually, no. Ted Cruz is the funniest, so I'm going to save that for last. Dan Crenshaw is blaming it on wind turbines, saying that wind turbines are, because they froze, then that's why all of this failure in the energy system is happening. Even though wind turbines only contributed to 13% of the failures, the other 87% came from natural gas and as well as coal and non-renewable energy. And then Greg Abbott is blaming a lot of people on this because he is the governor of Texas, so he's been getting a lot of blame from the Democratic Party. He's blaming it on wind turbines, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, the Green New Deal, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The Green New Deal hasn't even happened in Texas, let alone any other state in this United States. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is from New York, not from Texas. That said, she is the queen of clapback, as many people say. So of course she blames it on Greg Abbott. But not only does AOC clap back, but ERCOT also clapped back, saying that it didn't have enough money, it doesn't have enough resources because the governor of Texas has not given ERCOT the resources. And then AOC has also blamed this issue on Ted Cruz. Now, who has Ted Cruz blamed for this issue? Well, we have the Electric Reliability Council of Texas once again, and as well as wind turbines. He's also, his mulligan is also blaming it on the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, and as well as his daughter. Now, blaming Cancun Gate on his daughter is the most unsurprising thing ever, because we all know when we all saw Ted Cruz throw Heidi, his wife, under the bus. So obviously, he would throw his daughters under the bus as well. So those are this is just like a bit of the political blame game that is going on. And meanwhile, I think you've seen this the final tension that I haven't mentioned yet. But meanwhile, Beto O'Rourke is just having that tension with 75,000 seniors. That tension is so great. It's the biggest tension out of all of these tensions, and you could see that love connection between Beto O'Rourke and those 75,000 seniors. Now, before I talk about Beto O'Rourke, because it is a good thing to talk about, let's talk about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz should not be this inept to know the game of optics in politics. To know that going on a trip to Cancun would be bad optics for him and for his staff, because he flew on United. He flew in Houston. You're bound to get known. Someone's bound to see you in Houston, especially if you wear a mask. If you constantly wear a mask that has a Texas flag on it. That's because that's so much of Ted Cruz, and his beard and his hair is very recognizable. Now, Ted Cruz said that he regretted it as soon as he went on the plane, which is not surprising because that's when people started taking photos of him. But he can learn a lesson from Chris Christie. Chris Christie should have known that if he helped shut down New Jersey's government, then going to the beach would be a very bad idea and very bad optics for him. And Ted Cruz criticized Chris Christie for going on the beach. So, Ted Cruz can definitely learn from Chris Christie. Now, let's move on to Beto O'Rourke, because we talk about political blame games, but ultimately, it's useless. All of this is useless. And the theme of this video would probably be, shut up and do the work. Shut up and help people. Because if you're the incumbent politician, if you're Greg Abbott, then you should not be solely blaming this issue on other people, all the power outages on other people. You go on the ground and you help, and you be like Beto O'Rourke and help 75,000 seniors. That's what heightens your I guess, popularity with the with Texans, and for any American or for any person in general. If you're not elected to the governor's mansion in Texas so that you can blame issues that arise on other people. You don't get elected to the Texas gubernatorialship to blame AOC or to blame the Green New Deal if a problem arises. And Greg Abbott should learn from Donald Trump and how not to blame other people. Donald Trump was the president when COVID-19 struck the United States, and he blamed China. He blamed the WHO. He blamed on Democratic governors for the COVID-19 spread. That said, he's the president. The people want him to actually work and solve the issue, not blaming it on other people. Just like how people don't want Greg Abbott or Ted Cruz to be blaming it on other people. They want them to go and work on the ground to help Texans restore their water, their power, and their heat in their houses, because that's good optics. Going to Cancun, blaming it on other people is simply just not your job and is bad optics. So we can all be like Beto. We can all learn like Beto and get that love tension with 75,000 seniors. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.